What if you are not just one person, but a walking graveyard of extinct humans? What if, inside every one of your cells, there are fragments of people who no longer exist? Entire human species that vanished from the surface of the earth but never completely disappeared. You don't feel them, you don't hear their voices, but if you zoom into your DNA, past the familiar labels like European, African, Asian, past the colorful charts of your Ancestry app, you start to see something else. Ghosts. Not ghosts in the horror movie sense, but genetic ghosts. Pieces of Neanderthals, pieces of Denisovans, pieces of other unnamed humans whose bones we've never recognized, whose languages we've never heard, whose faces no one remembers. And here is the strangest part. Without those ghosts, you might not be alive. Tonight, we're going to take the thing you think you know your DNA test and turn it inside out. We won't ask, which modern country did my ancestors come from? We'll ask a much more unsettling question. How many different kinds of humans are still alive inside me? Welcome to Human Decode Project. Welcome to the ghost layer of your genome. Imagine you're holding a normal ancestry report. It gives you round, friendly numbers. 40% from here, 30% from there, nice gradients of color, reassuring region names. Maybe there's a little surprise that makes you smile. Oh look, I'm 3% from this distant place. I always felt connected to it. It's comforting, it's clean, it's simple. Now imagine a different report. No flags, no modern country names, just a line that says, several percent of your DNA comes from humans who went extinct tens of thousands of years ago. They never built cities. They never wrote books. They never took photos. But they are still here, living quietly inside your cells. You wake up in the morning, you check your phone, you go to work, you complain about the weather, you call yourself fully human. But some of the code that runs your body was written by hands that disappeared long before history began. The story most of us grew up with is wrong in its simplicity. We were told, first there were primitive hominids, then evolution happened, then there was us. One line, one species, one inevitable result. Reality is not a straight line. It's a tangled forest. For a long time, Earth was not home to just humans and animals. It was home to many kinds of humans. Different species of humans living at the same time, in different regions, sometimes ignoring each other, sometimes competing, and sometimes, as your DNA proves, sleeping together. You are the proof. You carry signatures of encounters that happened in caves, on mountain passes, in forests and river valleys, under foreign skies, in languages you've never heard. Two different kinds of humans met. They could have killed each other. Instead, at least sometimes, they had children. You are one of those children, many generations later. We like to think of Neanderthals as crude, heavy, almost monstrous. For decades, we drew them that way. Big bodies, heavy brows, clumsy minds. Conveniently other, so that we could feel special. But when scientists finally managed to read the DNA of these ancient people and compare it to ours, the surprise was not that they were similar. The surprise was that part of their DNA is in us, not next to us, inside us. The same goes for other ancient humans discovered later. Humans we didn't even know existed until their DNA appeared in a fragment of bone and a broken tooth. At first, they were just a mystery signal, a pattern that said, "This is human," but not quite like any human we've seen. And yet, Their genes show up today in people living thousands of kilometers away, on islands and mountains and coasts they never imagined. You are not purely you. You are a mosaic built from the remains of many vanished worlds. Now, take a moment and look down at your own hands. Under your skin, in the quiet darkness of your cells, there are instructions written millions of years ago, adjusted, corrected, and patched by multiple human species. Some pages of that instruction manual belong to modern humans. Some pages are older. Some pages come from authors we don't even have names for. If you could read that manual like a book, what would you feel? Pride? Horror? Amazement? Let's turn the page. To understand how we know this, we need to enter one of the strangest rooms in modern science. Bright white light, sterile air, humidity and temperature carefully controlled. No open windows, no casual movement. Everyone is covered head to toe in protective clothing. It looks like a scene from a science fiction movie about a secret virus. But they are not trying to protect themselves from something dangerous. They are trying to protect something fragile. On a metal table lies a fragment of bone. Small, cracked, yellowish. It has been buried for tens of thousands of years. Dirt, water, bacteria, time itself have tried to erase it. To the naked eye, it is just a fossil. Inside, there might still be tiny fragments of DNA. The scientists don't have a guarantee. Often, the attempt fails. But sometimes, if the conditions were just right, enough genetic material remains to tell a story. They drill into the hardest part of the bone or tooth, where DNA survives the longest. A fine, whining sound. Dust collects in a sterile tube. That powder is then treated with chemicals to pull out whatever ancient DNA is left. The molecules are damaged, broken into short pieces, chemically altered. Time is bitten into the code, leaving scars. But modern machines can copy those broken pieces and read them one by one. It's like trying to reconstruct an entire book when most of the pages have been burned and the surviving ones are torn into tiny shreds. If you have enough shreds and enough computational power, you can start to piece together sentences, chapters, the whole story. In this case, the book you reconstruct is a genome, the instruction manual for building one ancient human. Now comes the second part of the magic. You place that ancient genome next to the genomes of modern humans. Line by line, letter by letter, you compare. At some positions, the ancient and modern sequences match. At other positions, they differ. If you repeat this with many modern humans from different parts of the world, you can see patterns. Some modern populations share more of these distinctive ancient letters, others share fewer. That's how scientists realized that people from certain regions today carry a small percentage of Neanderthal DNA. It's not just a rumor or a guess, it's written into the genomes of living people. The same is true for other ancient humans whose remains were found in caves, mountains, and hidden valleys. Their DNA appears again, quietly, in us. But this is where the story turns from archaeology into something that feels like science fiction. It's not just that we carry any Neanderthal or Denisovan DNA. It's that we carry specific pieces that helped our ancestors survive. Your immune system, the way your body defends itself against invisible threats, has code in it that comes from these extinct cousins. Some of the ways your body reacts to the environment, sunlight, pathogens, altitude, temperature, are influenced by genes borrowed from humans whose names no one ever wrote down. Imagine your body as a spaceship. Most of its systems were designed by Homo sapiens engineers. Your brain, your language, your social instincts, your ability to imagine the future, all that is part of our core design. But as your ancestors moved across ice sheets, deserts, mountains, and new continents, they encountered other ships already adapted to those conditions. Instead of reinventing the oxygen system, they scavenged one from another model. Instead of slowly evolving a new immune shield from scratch, they borrowed one that already worked. They took parts from Neanderthal ships, from Denisovan ships, from other human ships we haven't even named. They bolted those systems into their own hulls. Sometimes the parts didn't fit, and those lines died out. Sometimes the parts fit perfectly. Those lines survived. You are their descendant. Your genome today is that hybrid spaceship. Behind the ordinary life, you recognize your job, your relationships, your habits. There is a complex layer of alien engineering, tuned over millennia by trial, error, and death. And then there's the most haunting detail. When researchers examine some ancient remains and compare their DNA to both modern humans and other ancient humans, they find patterns that don't match any known group. The signals are real, but they don't fit into any category we've labeled. It's as if there were other branches of the human tree, entire populations that have left no clear skeletons, no cave paintings, no myths. Their only surviving legacy is a faint echo in the genomes of people alive today. We call this unknown archaic ancestry. What it really means is that there are humans in your past whose world disappeared so completely that we might never know their stories. No names, no languages, no artifacts we can confidently tie to them. Just a subtle pattern in the way your molecules align. Imagine a world full of human cultures that rose and fell in forests that are now gone, on coasts drowned by rising seas, on plains that were later plowed, paved, and forgotten. Their bodies turned to dust. Their camps vanished without a trace, but their genes survived in the only place that really matters for evolution, in someone's child, and that child's child, and so on, until one day, you show up on the planet, buy a DNA kit online, spit in a plastic tube, and wait for your results. The test will tell you about countries. It will not mention the ghosts. Now that you know all this, one question refuses to go away. If you are part modern human, part Neanderthal, part Denisovan, part unknown, archaic, what does it mean to say, I am human? On paper, the answer is easy. You are human, because other humans recognize you as one. You live in a human society, under human laws, using technologies built by human minds. You are human enough to hold a passport, own a phone, watch this video, but at the biological level, the borders are softer than we like to admit. We want species to be boxes, simple, clean, separated. Ancient humans in one box, modern humans in another. Nature doesn't care about our boxes. Evolution is not a bureaucrat. It doesn't stamp forms or respect categories. It is a messy, ongoing experiment. Homo sapiens did not just appear one day as a finished, polished species version 1. Our form, our abilities, our vulnerabilities were shaped in many places, at many times, often in parallel, under different skies, by different pressures. We were not alone while this was happening. We met cousins. We met them in narrow valleys and wide plains, at water holes and in caves, on coastlines and in mountain passes. We smelled their fires, heard their voices, saw their weapons, watched their rituals. Sometimes we fought, sometimes we avoided each other, and sometimes we did the most human thing of all. We had children together. Those children were not fully us, not fully them. They were something in between. Hybrids, bridges, living connections between branches of the human family tree that our modern language would like to keep separate. Most of those branches broke and fell, but some of the genes carried by those hybrid children spread generation after generation until they reached you. This is not just a romantic idea. It is a direct challenge to many of the myths we tell about ourselves. Whenever you hear phrases like pure blood, 100% this, true descendants of that, your DNA quietly disagrees. Your DNA remembers a different story, one of constant mixing, crossing, borrowing, and blending. It remembers that we and they never were as separate as politics and propaganda would like us to believe. So why does this matter? Because the way you imagine your past shapes the way you treat people in the present. If you believe you come from a single, pure, unbroken line, it becomes easy to imagine that your group is fundamentally different from others. Better, deeper, more authentic. It becomes easier to draw hard lines between us and them, to see outsiders as intruders, pollution, threat. But if you understand that your own body is already a fusion of multiple ancient peoples, that your cells are literally the meeting point of many extinct tribes, then the idea of purity starts to look absurd. The stranger is already inside you. Parts of your immune system come from humans who would not recognize your face as belonging to their tribe. Parts of your metabolism were tuned by bodies that hunted animals you will never see. Parts of the way you adapt to climate or altitude were forged in environments your eyes will never visit. You are a living treaty between many dead nations. There is another layer to this: time. For you, all of this, the Neanderthals, the Denisovans, the unknown archaic humans, is ancient history, almost myth. They feel as far away as dragons or legends. But from the perspective of deep time, they are close. Shockingly close. The distance between you and some of these extinct humans is shorter than the distance between them and some earlier ancestors. Now imagine the future. 50,000 years from now, if any intelligent beings are still around, they might find our bones. Our cities will be gone or unrecognizable. Our languages will be dead. Our digital records, if they survive, will be scrambled fossils of data, unreadable or irrelevant. But in some dry cave, in a frozen layer of ground, in the vault of an underground shelter, they might find a tooth, a fragment of your skull, a piece of someone's finger bone. They might extract the DNA. They might reconstruct it. They might compare it to their own, and they will see us the way we see Neanderthals, as one branch on a complex tree. Not the center, not the final form, just one moment, one experiment. They will see that their bodies, their brains, their abilities, their vulnerabilities are built partly from our genes. They will see echoes of our time in their immune systems, their metabolisms, their skeletons. They might even identify particular human variants that help their ancestors survive some future catastrophe. In other words, they will discover that they are haunted by us. They might give our species a name. They might argue about whether we were fully like them or primitive versions. They might draw documentaries about us, calling us their extinct cousins, their mysterious ancestors, their genetic ghosts. We will become the ghosts in their DNA, and then the loop will be complete. So what do you do with this knowledge now? while you are alive and conscious and able to choose what kind of human you want to be. First, you stop looking at your DNA test as a certificate of identity. It is not an answer to who am I. It is a hint at what had to happen for me to be here. Second, you start treating other humans less like separate species and more like distant relatives, because that is exactly what they are. No matter how different someone looks, no matter where they come from, if they are human, they share most of their genome with you. The tiny differences between us today are nothing compared to the enormous distances between us and the extinct humans whose genes we still carry. And even those distances were not big enough to prevent love, sex, and children. Third, you learn to see yourself as a chapter, not the book. Your life is not the climax of history. You are one thin page in a story that started long before you and will continue long after you. The genes you carry, the choices you make, the children you have or don't have, the way you treat others, all of that becomes part of the background for someone else's life in the future. Finally, you let the idea sink in that being human has never meant being pure. To be human is to be mixed, to be haunted, to be the result of countless encounters, some tender, some violent, some accidental, some intentional. To be human is to carry unfinished stories in your cells, stories that began in caves and savannas and forests and ice fields, under stars your ancestors watched in fear and wonder. You are more than a nationality, more than an ethnicity, more than any label an app can put on you. You are a living museum of vanished humans. And every breath you take is another second of life for 100 lost species that refuse to be entirely forgotten. So next time you open your DNA report and you see those colorful percentages, do one thing. Look at them, then look past them. Behind every slice of that pie chart, behind every bland word like region or population, there's a ghost. Not to scare you, just to remind you that history is not over, that you are not alone in your own body, and that the line between us and them has always been much thinner than we wanted to believe.